Well, how's it going, guys? My name is ShadyRiku and welcome to my minigames guide for Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. Now, if we pause the game and go to Jiminy's journal, there's a separate section dedicated to minigames. Now, although none of these minigames are required to complete the story, we obtain very useful rewards upon their completion. There are 8 minigames in total, 2 in the Deep Jungle, 1 in the Olympus Coliseum, and most importantly 5 in the 100 Acre Woods, which must be completed in sequential order to seal the keyhole and complete this bonus world. Throughout the guide, I'm going to show you how to unlock each minigame, how to complete it, and then go into further detail afterwards to explain how to achieve a high score. All minigames have either a high score or a time in which they are completed, and to make things fun, I'm going to leave my own personal high scores for each of these minigames in the description. So if you're up for a challenge, see if you can beat the ShadyRiku high score, and if so, let me know down below. Feel free to post your own highest scores and we can keep a tally of the records down in the comment section. This will be a fun guide for everyone and complimentary for many of my previous guides, so let's jump on into it. So like I alluded to in the beginning, when we pause the game and go to Jiminy's journal, there will be a separate section for minigames. In here is a list of all the minigames currently available to play, along with a table of your 5 best times or scores. A golden Mickey Mouse here appears next to this section if you've completed every minigame currently available to you at least once. To complete a minigame, all we have to do is finish it. We don't have to obtain a particular score or anything, just make it to the end of all these minigames at least once, including all the different levels within said minigame where applicable, and a golden Mickey Mouse here will appear beside the minigames section of the journal once this is done to let you know all the minigames have been completed. Now, how do I know if I've completed a particular minigame? Well, like I said before, you only need to complete a minigame one time, so if when you select a minigame there is a score, you have completed it. Make sure you also have a score for each subsection or level within the minigame, or it won't be counted as complete. I will come back to the journal once more at the end of the video to show you what a completed minigame section looks like and to show you my high scores. Now, if anyone's interested in getting a world-class score on any of these minigames, then go to speedrun.com, where you can check out all the world records for the various minigames across Kingdom Hearts. And the great part is that alongside most of these records there are videos which you can emulate. Now, we all know watching a video can be helpful, but it's much more beneficial to have someone explain what is going on, and that's where I come in. Although this will be a more general player guide, I will delve into tips and strategies based on what the best in the world do to get a high score. So listen closely and I will explain how to really master these minigames. I may make a minigame guide part 2 where I go into detail on how to get close to and or beat the current world records for these minigames, but for now this is beyond the scope of this guide, so I'm going to stick to a more general guide for these minigames, but if anyone's interested in a part 2, let me know down below. My best scores for every minigame will be down in the description like I said before, so feel free to try and beat my scores. Let me know your best scores down below, and if you have any questions or need any help, let me know in the comment section. I hope you all enjoy. Let's go complete some minigames. Okay, so our first minigame is Vine Jump. Now, this is the only minigame in Kingdom Hearts that doesn't give you a reward for its completion. So if you don't want to do it, then use the timestamps below to skip ahead. But if you're a completionist like myself and want to complete Jiminy's journal, then follow along. Vine Jump is unlocked during our visit to the Deep Jungle, so if you're past that point in the game, you will have access to this minigame. The minigame is located in the Vines area of the Deep Jungle, which has a save point, so most of you can select Jungle Vines from the Gummy Ship menu and start there. However, I'm sure at least a couple of you don't have the ability to land here, so to keep everyone on the same page, I'm going to show you all how to get to the Vines, starting from the camp tent, an area that everyone has access to. So from here, let's exit the tent. Turn left and enter the Hippo's Lagoon past the table. Dead ahead is Ivy, which Sora can climb up to take us to the vines. So now that we're all on the same page, let's go over some basics. First, let's all walk on the save point. This ensures we can all access this area from the gummy ship menu in case we wish to return here in the future. Next, let's examine the flower over beside the lifeless party members, and it will ask us if we want to begin the time trial. Select yes and one of 4 course options appear. Now to complete the minigame we must finish all 4 courses, but just until we get the fundamentals down, let's choose jump course, the easiest of the 4. The whole premise of this minigame is to make it to the end of the course. The traditional way to do this is by using the vines to make our way to the finish. However, all you need to do to complete a course is land on the final platform in the Vines 2 area, and if you have the ability Glide, you can use it to just skip everything, and then this becomes one of the easiest minigames in Kingdom Hearts. Because gliding makes this minigame so easy, I'm going to make a separate time in the description for completing a course with Glide. So how would we normally complete the minigame? Well, we would do this by swinging on the vines. We can walk up to a vine and press triangle to jump on, and the direction you face can determine your swing path, as you see here. At the apex of the swing, an option jump next appears, which lets you jump to the next vine, and a jump off command appears when you're able to jump from a vine back onto solid ground. You're also able to jump of your own volition at any time without having to rely on the sometimes inconsistent command to appear. I recommend practicing jumping from the vines because it will become important as we get to the more difficult courses, and is the most consistent option when jumping from a vine back to the ground. This particular vine is very inconsistent in my experience, and in this case the swing timing was off, so the command to jump next didn't appear. So instead of waiting, I jumped and grabbed the next vine manually, which is also possible, but as you can imagine is a lot harder and only recommended as a last resort. Now, despite there being a timer, this is not a time trial and you can take as long as you need to. The timer is only there to show how quickly you complete the course. Once we finish the first section, we must continue into Vine 2 to complete the minigame. Don't worry, this is still technically part of the vines area, so the minigame won't end. That will only happen if we leave the vines or fall down. Once we land on the final platform in the Vines 2 area and see the minigame finishes, we have completed the course. Don't worry, we don't have to swing all the way back, just jump from the tree and this will take you to the Hippo's Lagoon. Turn right and make your way to the climbable ivy, which takes us straight up to the vines again. This is the only time I will show this, but this is the path I take each time I complete a course. Even though the courses get tougher, the overall layout of the minigame never changes. The only differences between the courses are the placement of each vine, and some vines become snakes. Snakes? That's right, there are snakes that appear in every other course. They are easily identifiable as they have a light brown colour and the texture of rope. The danger with snakes is that you only get one swing before you slip from the snake and fall down into the Hippo's Lagoon, which ends the minigame since you've left the vines area. However, like I shown before, it's very easy to return back to the vines from here. The snakes only allow a forward and backward swing, and this is why it's not only crucial to get the timing right for your swings, but also have the reaction time and practice to jump from the snakes if need be before you fall, which you'll see in action as I play through each course. Please note that if your reaction time is good enough, anytime you fall or are about to fall, you can catch yourself before falling to the Hippo's Lagoon by pausing the game and selecting restart to bring you back to the beginning of the course. So, with the basics out of the way, let's start completing the minigame. Okay, so let's start with the jump course. This is your basic standard course, and the vines don't change as far as I'm aware. Just use this course as an opportunity to get used to the timing for the jumps before the snakes get brought into the equation. If you can't complete this course without swinging backwards, then you're probably not ready to continue. Treat this course as your training grounds, and once you're comfortable, we can continue to the next course. Next up is the trap course. This is when the snakes begin to appear. As you can see, I missed the landing, so I manually jumped from the snake, otherwise I would have plummeted. Don't be afraid to jump and be ready at all times. Again, same thing happened. This is the most awkward part of every course, so always be ready to jump back and start again. There's no time limit, remember, so there's no harm in resetting. At this final stretch, there's no going back, so commit and trust your timing and you should be fine. Again, if you catch yourself falling, you can always pause and restart the course. The acrobatic course is identical to what we've seen already, with minor variations, and the only major difference being a jump required right at the end, hence the name. When we get to the final stretch, be ready because the last swing is a snake, and the only way to get to the final platform is by jumping. Overall, not too hard if you know what to expect, so watch me if you want to get an idea of what's coming up. The final course, the expert course, despite its name, isn't really any harder than what we've seen already. This course is almost entirely snakes. However, if you've made it this far, I believe you're more than capable of completing this course. I certainly didn't do perfect here, but give it a watch because there are some good examples of what can go wrong and how to deal with it. Once you make it to the end of the final course, congratulations, you've now completed the Vine Jump minigame. Unfortunately, there are no prizes for completing this minigame, but good news is that from here on out, all minigames will reward you with something for their completion. Now we can continue. The next minigame we get access to is Jungle Slider, unlocked after we seal the Deep Jungle's keyhole. To start this minigame, all we have to do is jump inside the tree trunk in the Deep Jungle's tunnel. Thankfully the tunnel has a save point, so I'm sure a lot of you can land here from the gummy ship menu. However, it's possible that you've never even been here before, so to keep everyone on the same page, I'm going to show you initially how to get to the tunnel, starting from the camp tent, the area we all have access to. So after landing here from the gummy ship menu, let's leave the tent and then head left into the Hippo's Lagoon. You can go either direction from here, but the easiest is to go straight and climb the ivy into the vines area. Make your way past this area using the vines or by gliding. And head into vines 2. From here, do the same thing until you reach the furthest platform in this vines 2 area. If you need any help with the vine swinging, you're in the right place because I went into great detail on this earlier in the video, so use the timestamps down in the description to take you there if needed. Once we reach this final platform, climb the ivy up to the climbing trees. Straight ahead is a ledge we can use to get to the treetop. And then past the treetop is where we want to go, the tunnel. Some info about Jungle Slider pops up if this is your first time here, and before you do anything else, very important, step on the save point hidden underneath the ledge. Now we can return here at any time from the gummy ship menu. Now let's jump into the tree trunk and start the minigame. This is my favourite minigame, and the whole object is to collect all the fruit as you slide to the end of the course. There is a tally in the top left of the screen to tell you how many fruit you have collected, and a timer on the top right to show you how quickly you've completed the course. As you can see, the fruit is pretty easy to collect. Thankfully this game is quite generous and doesn't require you to be right on top of each fruit to collect them. There is a slight leeway. However, the main problems will always be, number 1, not knowing where the fruit is on the course, which will be mitigated by watching this guide beforehand. And number 2, Sora veering to one side or the other. If you've played this minigame before, you'll feel how hard Sora gets pulled in a particular direction at certain points throughout this minigame. So it's important to be confident on where you're going and firm on the joystick to go the direction you want. You're also able to dictate Sora's speed depending on the direction you hold the joystick. By pulling downwards, you'll slow down, giving you more time to react, but offers less control, and Sora is more easily pulled in a given direction. By pushing upwards, Sora will speed up, giving you more control thanks to the momentum generated, which mitigates the second problem, and of course leads to a better time. For these reasons, I actually prefer to go fast throughout the minigame. However, I understand that this requires good knowledge of the course, so my advice is to watch me beforehand and take note of where each fruit is located before trying yourself. Lastly, I just want to make note that there are some obstacles and course related details that I will delve into as I guide you through each one. Just note that these obstacles can damage Sora, however they don't deal much damage, so it's very rare to lose all your HP doing this minigame. In the unlikely event that this does happen, don't worry, it doesn't count as a game over. The minigame just ends and you're brought back to the tunnel to try again. So with all that out of the way, let's start the minigame with the first course. So starting with course number 1, Green Serpent. This is your basic fundamental course. The first 3 fruit are on the left. The following 3 on the right. And the last set of 3 in the middle. Next we must jump and swing the Keyblade to clear the branches, and then stick to the center again for our final fruit. As we collect 10 fruit for the first time, we get an elixir as a reward. Now once we finish the first course, we're dropped off back at the camp, and from here the quickest and easiest way to return to the tunnel is to go to the gummy ship menu from the tent. And you'll notice if you couldn't before, you'll be able to land at the tunnel because we stepped on the save point. Now we aren't done yet. As I alluded to already, there are multiple courses to do. Now how do we unlock these other courses? We unlock them by collecting all the fruit in the previous course. So we collected 10 fruit beforehand. So now as we reach the end of the first course, where we previously had to go right, we have the option of continuing the minigame by taking the left path into course 2, which, if you remember, was previously blocked. There are 5 courses in total, and each one, except the last course, has an alternative route. There are 10 fruit in each course, so if we wanted to get to course 3, for example, we would have to collect 10 fruit in course 1, and 10 fruit in course 2 as well. And then the next time we play the minigame, the path into course 3 will be available, and so on and so forth until we finish all 5 courses and collect all 50 fruit. Basically, you complete a course to unlock the next one, and so on until we collect all 50 fruit. This means that we'll need to play a minimum of 5 games of Jungle Slider to complete it. So we're now entering the second course, Splash Tunnel, and this, in my opinion, is actually the hardest course. It starts extremely easy, and the first 6 are actually harder to miss than they are to collect. As you pass the second set of fruit, we come to rocky obstacles that damage Sora if he hits them, like the branches beforehand. Follow me closely and you'll be fine, but note that damage isn't a big deal in this minigame, since it's incredibly hard to lose all your HP, like I said before. It more so just kills momentum, which is crucial for the last 4 fruit in this course. As we come into the large open area, we find the hardest set of fruit to collect in the game, in my opinion. If we slow down, hesitate, or don't keep our thumb firmly on the joystick, Sora can veer all over the place and you'll find yourself missing the fruit. At our 19th fruit beside the large rock, just run into it, because afterwards we need to sharply turn right by holding the joystick fully to the right, and if we start trying to avoid the rock by going left, you're probably going to miss your turn and you'll feel yourself how strong the pull is. So trust me, breaking the rock is the most consistent route. You can also attack this rock as well if you please, but I just tend to run into it. Once we've collected all 20 fruit, we obtain an AP up. Take note of the large boulder blocking the left path. Well, like before, that's the alternative route we take to continue into course 3, and because we collected all 20 fruit, the next time we come this way, we will be able to take that path. But for now, once we complete the second course, we fall into the Hippo's Lagoon. At this point, I know some of you will have missed a fruit, in which case just pause the game and select Restart to bring you back to the tunnel. Selecting Quit brings you back to the camp. If you miss a single fruit, just restart. There's no point finishing and then having to make it all the way back to the tunnel. This is a good time to explain how the rewards work. We actually need to collect 20 fruit for the AP up, then 30, 40 and 50 fruit for our following rewards. So even if you collect all the fruit in this second course, but you missed one back in course 1, not only will you not get your prize, but the third course won't be unlocked either. Now, back at the Hippo's Lagoon where we got dropped off after course 2, we're going to make our way back to the camp tent and return to the tunnel via the Gummy Ship menu. This is the last time I'm going to show this, but just note that we're going to do this after every single course, as it's by far the quickest and easiest way to get back to the tunnel. And from here on out, I'm not going to show you the previous courses either. I'm going to show you the following courses starting from the alternative routes. So back at the end of course 2, as you come round to that path to the left we talked about before that was previously blocked by the boulder, take it into course 3, Jade Spiral. The courses actually get easier from here on out, and course 3 is the easiest in my opinion. The only shocking bit is how fast it goes, which if you're not comfortable with, feel free to slow down a little. The first 3 fruit are in the centre and fairly easy. This clip gives you a good idea of how magnetic the fruit are, and shows you don't have to be exact. Hold left to get the following 3, go back to the centre for the next few, and the final fruit is in the centre and slightly to the left. Easy enough. For collecting 30 fruit you get a dark matter. As you can see there's an obvious path to the right blocked by a bush, and as you've probably guessed, this leads to course 4, available next time we get here. So take the right path next time round and this will lead us to course 4, Panic Fall. This is the slowest of the 5 courses, so just be patient and take your time. Stick to the middle for the first 3 and again for the 4th fruit. Don't jump over that branch or you'll miss it. It's just there to bait you like the one in the first course, and it won't hurt you. Now hold the joystick to the right. As you come round the final corner you'll collect the next 2 fruit. Afterwards go back to the centre for the last 4, and after obtaining all 40 fruit you will net yourself a defense up, and the final course will be available next time we play. If you'd like to know where all the AP up, defense up and power ups are in the game, then I will leave a link in the description to take you to my guide for said items. For the final time today, let's make our way back through the courses, making sure to collect all the fruit, and at the end of course 4, instead of going towards the waterfall, let's go left and into our 5th and final course, Shadow Cavern. Surprisingly, this isn't as hard as you would think. The first 3 are hard to miss. It gets a little tricky for the next 3, but you can see that despite being a mile away, I still obtained the 46th fruit. And afterwards stick to the centre and very slightly to the left for your final fruit. After obtaining all 50 fruit we receive a power up. Go and finish the course now, and that will be the Jungle Slider minigame complete. Congratulations. Our next set of minigames are all inside the 100 Acre Woods world, the ones I'm sure most of you are here for. The 100 Acre Woods is a bonus world accessed by examining the old book in Merlin's house, known as the Magician's Study in Traverse Town, an area which can be accessed from the Gummy Ship menu. If you're far enough in the story you will have the ability to enter the 100 Acre Woods world. However, if you need help locating the Magician's Study, or want details on how to return the old book to Merlin, then check the Simba section of my summons guide and it will go into great detail on this, since you learn the summon by returning the old book. Now to enter the 100 Acre Woods, walk up to the book sitting on the table between the bed and the mountain of tomes in the Magician's Study and examine it. Now if you haven't already, you'll need to complete a few prerequisites before we can enter the areas with the minigames. If a small cutscene begins as soon as you enter the old book, then that means that this is your first time entering the 100 Acre Woods, in which case follow along from the start. If you've been to the 100 Acre Woods before, have a look around the book. Depending on which areas are available to you and subsequently which areas are covered in white, this will indicate how much of the 100 Acre Woods you have already completed, and therefore which section of this guide applies to you. This can get a little confusing to pinpoint, so let me explain. If when you look around the old book the only area available is the stick hut on the right page, then you're right at the beginning of the 100 Acre Woods story and should follow along from the beginning. Upon the completion of this little meadow area, you get access to Pooh's house, So if when you look around the book, Pooh's house is also available, then you don't need to worry about the meadows, it has been completed. At this point, if no other areas are available, this means one of two things. Either number one, you haven't completed Pooh's house, in which case follow my guide section for that area. However, if you've completed Pooh's house and there's still no other area available to you, then that means that number two, you haven't collected any torn pages yet. What is a torn page? Well, as it turns out, the old book is missing pages, hence why some areas of the book are completely missing. These missing pages are called torn pages. There are 5 torn pages in total, and these pages are scattered across various places in the game. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on the locations of the torn pages in this video, because I've actually made a torn pages guide on my channel, which I will link down below in the description and at the end of the video if you need help finding them. Upon collecting a torn page, when we return to the 100 Acre Woods, an area that was previously unavailable will become accessible to us as long as the meadow, as well as Pooh's house sections, are both completed first, as these are prerequisites which must be completed first before our torn pages unlock a new area. Similarly, to get access to the area of another torn page, you must complete the previous torn page first. So let's say I collect 3 torn pages and return to the 100 Acre Woods. Assuming I've done the prerequisites, I will gain access to the first area of the book with 1 torn page. Once that area has been complete, I can enter the second area of the old book with my second torn page, and then only after completing the previous 2 pages will I get to use my third torn page for the next area. It really is told just like a storybook in this sense, insofar as each area must be completed in sequential order for the subsequent areas to be unlocked. So then, how do we complete a torn page? We complete a torn page by completing the minigame in said area. This is why the minigames are so important, because the only way to complete the torn pages and finish the 100 Acre Woods is to beat all the minigames. As I alluded to beforehand, the areas are all unlocked in a set order, so it doesn't matter which of the 5 torn pages you collect first, everyone will have to complete the 100 Acre Woods in the same order. So once we complete the first minigame in the honey tree area, which is accessed with our first torn page, the torn page will transform into an item as a reward. And then when we collect our next torn page, our second area, Rabbit's house, will unlock, followed by the swing, Tigger's giant pot, and lastly Pooh's muddy path, which upon completion will end our journey in the 100 Acre Woods and seal the keyhole. You're starting to get an idea now of which areas correspond to each torn page, but let's go further and explain how to know exactly how far we are in the completion of the 100 Acre Woods, so we can use the timestamps down below to take us to the exact section of this guide that we need. Okay, so pause the game, go to the minigames section of your journal and see which minigames have been completed. As a reminder, if a minigame has a score, it has been completed. So let's say I go to my journal, and out of all 5 of the minigames in the 100 Acre Woods, I've completed 3. It's pretty obvious which minigames are from the 100 Acre Woods, but if you can't tell which is which, check the description. So with 3 minigames complete, that means the first 3 torn pages are done, so I would need to go to the 4th minigame / torn page section of this guide. We know at this point the 2 requirements to unlock a new area are: number 1, you need a torn page to unlock this area. Of course, we can check whether or not we have a torn page by pausing the game and going to items. You hold on to the torn page until the area is complete, so this method is foolproof. You will always have a torn page until a minigame has been completed. And number 2, to complete the previous 3 torn pages, which we have just checked using the journal. So both requirements are met, so let's go complete torn page number 4, which corresponds to Tigger's Giant Pot minigame in the guide. I know this is all a little confusing, so I will leave all this info down in the description for you to digest a little better. Trust me, it's harder to explain than it is to play through. Again, I know this is a minigames guide, and of course I will show you how to complete the minigames within each torn page, but all this information is very important beforehand. So with all that out of the way, I say we start playing right from the beginning at the Meadows. Okay, so the first thing we must do before anything else is enter the meadow. You get here by walking up to the stick hut on the right side of the book and selecting Sure.
Sink.
After a quick cutscene, walk towards Pooh and another cutscene will begin. Afterwards, leave the meadow. Once this is complete, Pooh's house, the giant tree, will be unlocked on the left center page on the opposite side of the book. Once we enter this area, walk inside Pooh's house. And after a quick chat with Pooh, we can leave. This initiates dialogue with Owl, who explains that in order to unlock the rest of the 100 Acre Woods, you must return the missing pages. This is of course in reference to the torn pages found throughout Kingdom Hearts. As I said before, I will leave a link down in the description and at the end of the video to take you to my torn pages guide if you'd like to know the locations. With that, we can now return to the world map, and now with these two prerequisite areas complete, we are now able to access the areas where our minigames reside from now on, provided we have a torn page of course. So once we've collected our first torn page, we can return to the 100 Acre Woods and we get access to a tall, curious tree buzzing with bees, the honey tree area, along with our first minigame. Initially, a cutscene will begin, and afterwards we need to talk to Piglet. Now if we walk up to Piglet, he will hide on us. So instead, let's sneak around the tree and talk to him from behind. After another cutscene and a quick explanation from Owl, the minigame Pooh's Honey Hunt will start. Owl goes into detail about how to play each minigame the first time you play them. I'm not going to be showing this of course because I'm going to explain all the details to you myself, but I will also leave them in the description for you to read if you'd like a more thorough explanation. The funny thing about some of these 100 Acre Woods minigames is that you can complete them and receive your reward by doing absolutely nothing. So if you just want to complete the torn page, just leave the game running for 3 minutes while the timer runs out and you will finish the minigame. Interestingly, a different cutscene triggers depending on your score. I will leave info on the scores that initiate the different scenes in the description for each minigame where applicable. However, this is a minigames guide, and I'm sure some of you would like to get a high score or beat my score, so let's go into details about how to beat this minigame. Essentially, the whole object of the minigame is to defend Pooh from the bees that will go after him for stealing their honey. If they reach the balloon, it will pop and Pooh will fall back to the bottom of the tree. As Pooh climbs the tree, he will stop and eat honey from each of the holes in the tree until he reaches the hole at the top, where he will stay until the minigame ends or his balloon gets popped. So the key to a high score is getting and keeping Pooh at the top hole for as long as possible. We do this by stopping the bees from getting to Pooh as he makes his way up to the top, and then defending him while he's up there. How do we do this? Well, we do this by locking onto a swarm of bees with ore 1, which will come from a particular hive depending on how far up the tree Pooh is, and hitting them with our keyblade before they reach Pooh. Pro tip, the longer the keyblade, the easier it is to make contact with the bees. You want to follow Pooh up the tree by jumping on the various branches along the way. Luckily, most of the time after hitting the bees you will automatically land on the nearest branch. However, if at any time you fall, you will need to quickly make your way back up to where Pooh is, so you can protect him. We can either do this manually or my preferred method, using what's called the rush command. This is a mechanic in a couple of these 100 Acre Woods minigames, which really does help. In this case, it quickly gets Sora up to Pooh by pressing triangle while facing the bottom of the tree. The most inconsistent point when it comes to both the rush command and the auto jump after swatting the bees is going for branch 3 to 4. So be ready to have to use rush from the bottom if you fall, or manually jump between those branches if rush fails you. Throughout this minigame you want to always position yourself close to Pooh and underneath him where possible, so that the bees get close to Sora and slightly above him, as Sora does struggle to hit below him. You can kind of anticipate which hives the bees are going to come from, especially after watching my run, so be ready and position yourself accordingly. Now most of the times abilities and keyblades have little to no effect on a minigame in the 100 Acre Woods. However here, not only does the length of our keyblade matter, but the ability Combo Master is amazing for this minigame. This ability lets us swing our keyblade even if we miss our target, and is learnt at level 50 or 55 depending on the weapon you chose at the beginning of the game. More info on this is in the description. So even if we miss the swarm of bees, we can continue to swing with this ability, and more than likely one attack will connect. And even if we're out of position, the jump we are rewarded with after hitting the bees should correct us. As Pooh makes his way to the 4th hole, the bees will come from the right side hive, and after hitting them, Sora should land on the 2nd highest branch. This is the most useful auto jump, as it allows us to clear the hardest jump in this minigame, and puts us in a prime position to swat the following swarms until Pooh reaches the top. Even if you don't make it, as long as you hit the bees you have enough time to use rush and get back to Pooh. If rush misses the 4th branch as well, then you're just unlucky. Once you're on the 2nd highest branch, you may still get one more swarm coming from the hive below, in which case you need to be patient and wait until they are very close to Pooh, as Sora will struggle to hit below him like I mentioned before. Afterwards, every swarm will come from the final hive unless Pooh falls again, but these ones are quite easy to deal with. All we have to do is stay on the branch we're on. I like to wait for them to reach the upper part of the final branch from this angle, then low jump and hit. You may be brought up to the final branch at this point, in which case just repeat everything we've been doing so far. There are no more branches to go. We're at the top branch right beside Pooh, who will also stay in the same position. All we have to do now is keep hitting the bees, who will come from the same hive now every time. The only difference is that the speed at which they fly from the hive can vary, but it's really not a big deal and barely worth a mention. Because everything stays almost exactly the same from this top branch, all we have to do is rinse and repeat until the timer runs out and the minigame will then be complete. At any point, if Pooh's balloon gets popped, just repeat everything again from the bottom and work your way back up to achieve a high score. Once time is up, that's the minigame. Congratulations. Remember to post all scores down below. Like after all 100 Acre Woods minigames, there's a short post minigame cutscene, and then we are ejected from the area as our torn page turns into a reward, and our first reward in this case is Nature Spark. This is a special item called a summon gem, which can be converted into the summon spell Bambi. If you'd like to know how to learn all the different summons in Kingdom Hearts, then check out my summons guide, Links to this guide will be down in the description. Don't worry, we can return to these areas at any time, even after completing the torn page, and we can also replay the minigames as well. In this case, all we need to do after re-entering the honey tree area is to talk to Pooh, and we can play again if we want. Congratulations, that's the Pooh's Honey Hunt minigame complete. Once the previous minigame has been complete and we collect our second torn page, Rabbit's House, the large tree in the top left of the book, will be available for us to enter. First we need to go round to the side of the tree. We can't enter just yet. When we get round, we'll find Pooh and Piglet trying to find Rabbit. Now let's go back round the tree and enter through the front door. After some dialogue, we must locate a pot of honey which Rabbit has hidden above one of the branches near the ceiling. Once close enough, we can examine with triangle. This begins more dialogue, and afterwards we need to leave the area. Before we get to leave though, Piglet will bring us back to help Pooh, who is now stuck in the hole. Exit the house and go talk to Pooh at the front of the hole. Rabbit will then tell you he needs to make carrot top juice to get Pooh free. This is when a cutscene with Tigger will start. And after a brief explanation of the rules by Owl, the minigame Block Tigger will start. The aim of this minigame is to stop Tigger from jumping on Rabbit's carrots by standing underneath whichever carrot he attempts to jump on to protect it. If he manages to jump on a carrot twice, it will be buried and your score will be lower. The more times you block Tigger, and subsequently how many of the 16 total carrots you save, all add to your total score. This is the second and final minigame that you can complete by doing absolutely nothing. So if you just want to complete the minigame and finish the torn page, then you just have to stand there and wait until the timer runs out. Of course, this is a minigames guide, so for everyone else, I'm going to go into some detail on how to get a high score. This is a pretty basic minigame and there's really not much to it, but it's certainly not easy to perfect. Like in the previous minigame, we have a rush command, which can be activated by facing a carrot and pressing triangle, bringing Sora quickly to the carrot that Tigger is attempting to land on if timed correctly. Tigger will choose a random carrot each time, so only press rush whenever he starts to jump. Too early and the game won't know where Tigger's going. And too late obviously results in a missed block. The key is to always face a carrot, so you have the rush command ready. And then as soon as he jumps, press rush, and then quickly adjust Sora to catch Tigger as he lands. You'll notice that rush by itself is pretty unreliable, and won't put you directly underneath Tigger for the block most of the time. And this is why that small adjustment right at the end is so important. You can try without rush if you want, but good luck going from one side to another before Tigger lands. With a little practice you will get the hang of it, and although it's not the easiest minigame, it's definitely one of the most straightforward.
Oh, what's going on?
Once the minigame is complete, go back inside Rabbit's house. And then go over to Pooh and hit triangle. This causes Sora to push Pooh free. And after a short cutscene, the second torn page will turn into our next reward, a mithril shard, indicating its completion. Anytime you want to play this minigame again, go back to Rabbit's house. And talk to Tigger, who's standing beside the carrot patch. After completing the previous two minigames and collecting our third torn page, we get access to our next area, the swing, located on the bottom right of the book. After the initial cutscene upon entering this location, jump into the river and save Eeyore. After this, we're sent to look for Eeyore's lost tail, and Owl suggests we use the swing to get a good vantage point. Now we need to go up to the swing, but we have to take Pooh with us. Pooh will follow Sora if we lock onto him with Or 1 and walk ahead. So all we have to do is lead him across the bridge, then down the path. Keep him away from the honey, otherwise he will stop to eat for a few seconds. And afterwards, to get him moving again, you'll need to press R1. Then we can continue. So take him beyond the path, and then walk up the hill towards the swing. If you go up the hill before Pooh's off the path, he may catch on the lip of the hill. As with anything you're locked onto, don't stray too far or you'll lose it, so don't go too far in front of Pooh. Once he reaches the top of the hill, the minigame begins, after a short scene. This is the easiest minigame in Kingdom Hearts in my opinion. All we do is press R1 to initiate the swing, and R1 again every time Owl opens their wings. 3 swings after the initial push is enough to send Pooh flying from the swing. To complete the minigame, we must get Pooh to land on the stick hut beside Eeyore and Rabbit. We need a distance of between 20 to 29 meters roughly to have Pooh land on the hut. I didn't realise this before making the guide, but you can actually miss the target by going too far or too short. Now we achieve a particular distance depending on when we opt to push Pooh in relation to Owl. So in this particular instance, by pressing R1 to push when Owl fully opens his wings, here, here, and here, we achieve the desired distance to complete the minigame. So first and foremost, to just complete the minigame, we push 3 times while Owl's wings are fully extended, and this sends Pooh crashing into the stick hut and ends the minigame. Inside is Eeyore's tail, and upon returning it, the torn page will turn into an upgrade to your stop magic. Now if you want to know how to learn or upgrade any of the magic in Kingdom Hearts, then check the description where I will leave a link to take you to my magic guide. So how do we get a high score? So when we return to this area with the swing, walk up the hill and talk to Pooh, who's standing in front of the tree, to try the minigame again. Now our score, like I said before, is actually dependent on when we time our pushes. Remember, we push Pooh with R1, and 3 pushes after the initial push, Pooh will be airborne. Now the timing is all based around when Owl flaps his wings. Try to push before Owl starts his animation and you will fail. The earlier you push Pooh during Owl's animation, the less distance he will travel. Here. 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 Pushing early 3 times gives you a shorter distance and sends Pooh into the water. Now there's actually a split second before Owl moves his wings. Here. Here. And here. Where it is possible to push Pooh. And if you manage to pull this off 3 times, Pooh will travel close to the minimum possible distance. I managed to pull off a distance of only 3 meters. Now I believe this is the lowest possible score, but if you can get a lower score, let me know in the comments below. I will actually have 2 categories for this minigame, shortest and longest distance, since both require skill to achieve. Just know that your shortest distance won't appear in your journal, so you'll have to keep track of this yourself. So on the other side of the coin, how do we achieve a high score? Well, as you've probably guessed, the later into the animation we push Pooh, the more distance we cover. Here. Here. And here. Anytime between Owl's wings lowering, and even up to a half second after the animation, you can push Pooh, and doing this for all 3 pushes will result in a score of around 40 meters plus. If we push too late, we will end up failing, just like if we push too early beforehand. So is pushing right at the end of the Owl movement the key to a maximum score? Surprisingly no. The highest score I managed to obtain was 46 meters, and I actually got this score by pushing as Owl's wings hit his side. I'm not sure why this leads to a high score, but it does in my experience. I also believe the max score is 46 meters, but again I would love to challenge my subscribers and hopefully you can prove me wrong and beat my score. Just note, any combination of good or bad timing, or pushing in the middle of the animation like we did when we first completed this minigame, will result in a mid-distance somewhere between both extremes, and interestingly sends Pooh into Eeyore's hut like before, but this time initiates a new cutscene. Afterwards, Eeyore will leave the area. Poor Eeyore. But that's all the info you really need for this simple minigame. Have fun and see if you can beat my scores. After completing the previous 3 torn pages, if you return with torn page number 4, you get access to the next area of the 100 Acre Woods, the clearing in the centre of the book crowded with tree stumps. When you get here, go jump on the seesaw. And hit OK when asked if you want to try. Eventually, Tigger and Roo will come off the seesaw and jump on a tree stump. Go up and talk to Tigger. You now begin Tigger Bounce. Technically not a minigame, but something you must complete to get to the minigame. Pretty self-explanatory, just follow the path Tigger uses to get to the end. Needless to say, if you touch the ground at any point, you need to restart the course you're on by talking to Tigger. You can't use high jump or glide, but you can still swing the keyblade in the air if you need more distance. After, talk to Tigger again and do the same thing a second time. This time the jumps have a slight variation, but still pretty easy. Talk to Tigger a third time to initiate the final Tigger bounce course. Where you go from the stump to the seesaw initially, and then continue normally after coming down from the tree. I don't jump down, I just walk off and direct myself as I fall if needed. Jumping is less consistent in my experience. Once finished all 3 courses, turn and talk to Roo this time, and this will initiate the real minigame, Tigger's Giant Pot, where we whack the nuts back at the pot to shatter it. To do this, lock onto a nut with ore 1, jump at the right time and hit it. This is another minigame along with Pooh's Honey Hunt that is easier with a longer keyblade as it allows for more range. Similar to the minigame before, if you touch the ground at any time you lose. You need to get a score of 20 to break open the pot and finish the minigame. The key to a high score then is to naturally miss no nuts. However, this is easier said than done. I advise everyone to stay at the end of the stump furthest from the pot, as Sora will leap forward after hitting a nut, and if you're too close to the pot he will fall off, causing the end of the minigame. Interestingly, after going back to try and get a high score myself in this minigame, I discovered a few key details. Number 1, the earlier you hit the nut, i.e. the higher in the air you hit it, the more points you get. Number 2, if you hold forward on the joystick as you hit the nut, it earns more points. And number 3, this is not confirmed, but I believe it's very likely to be true, that the higher your strength stat is, the higher the score after each hit. With all this information, the key to the quickest time is to equip high jump, using the ability Combo Master so we can swing freely, even if we miss, along with a keyblade with long reach such as the Pumpkin Head or Ultima Weapon, so we can hit the nuts as early as possible. Combine this with being at a high level, and holding forward on the joystick while hitting the nuts, and this will result in some very fast times, especially since if you combine everything together, it's very likely you will gain 20 points and break open the giant pot in a single hit, and this is how we obtain these crazy times like 4 to 5 seconds. These are all more advanced techniques for you to try and obtain the best score possible, and I may go into more detail in the future with a minigame guide part 2, catered towards obtaining world record level scores, but for now that's all the info we need to complete Tigger's Giant Pot. Once you get to a score of 20, the pot will break, and that's the minigame finished. So now we can leave this area and claim our prize of a mithril. If at any time you would like to replay this minigame, just enter this area once again. Jump on the seesaw. And then talk to Roo. Once the minigame ends, the pot breaks, so every time you complete this minigame, you need to return to the 100 Acre Wood map and return to this area to try again. For our 5th and final torn page, we get access to the Muddy Path area and subsequently our final minigame. Initially, when we enter this area, just walk forward. Dialogue will start with Pooh, and he will explain that he's lost his friends. Now we can lock on to Pooh, just like in the swing area, and he will follow you. I like to bring him round to the front of the circular bush, take lock off, and then examine the entrance of said bushes, and Sora will walk inside to find Eeyore. By the end of the conversation, the minigame will start, with the idea being to find everyone and bring them back to the Muddy Pen. I'm going to show you the quickest route I've found, so follow closely. Firstly, let's lock on to Pooh with R1 and bring him to the right side of the mud by having Sora stand underneath the branch. Once Pooh gets over here, he will find Roo on top of the wood. Now we don't actually need to bring Pooh over here, you can do, but another option is you can actually jump up and hit the branch, and then after a few seconds Roo will come down, and then Sora can speak to him himself. Thankfully, after we find and talk to each character, they will automatically go back to the place where we found Eeyore along with Sora, but note that Pooh will remain in the same location you left him. Now let's bring Pooh under the log and towards the purple flowers. Once he reaches the flowers, they will elevate him to the upper ledge. Before we join Pooh, let's get Rabbit, who's down here hiding in the 3rd hole. When we approach, he will run out from the 1st hole, and when he does this we can speak to him and Rabbit will join the others. Don't worry if you're too slow and miss Rabbit, just walk up to whatever hole he is currently in and he will pop out again for you to speak to him. Now have Sora jump above the well in the centre, and the draft will push him up to where Pooh is. Let's talk to Tigger, who's bouncing on the log. You'll have to time this correctly, otherwise he will keep bouncing and can actually push you off the log as well, and this is why we want to get Tigger into the house before we continue. Now let's return to where we were. Lock onto the beehive above the log by pressing R1 to lock on, and L2 to change targets to the hive if need be. Cast fire or gravity magic on the hive and it will fall and plug the gap in the log, allowing Pooh to cross. If we don't do this, Pooh will fall into the hole and go back to the beginning of the log. We can now jump onto the edge of the tree, lock onto Pooh, and he will walk onto the log using the thin branch as long as you're lined up properly. If he falls down, just use the flowers like before to bring him back up. Now we can make our way across as Pooh will cross over himself once he's on the tree. Once Pooh's on the other side, let's lock onto him again and bring him over to the 2nd set of flowers. This allows Pooh to access the top of the Muddy Path area. We brought him all the way up here to talk to Piglet. Unlike the rest of the characters, Piglet actually needs Pooh to speak to him. Piglet is inside the tree up here, so let's first bring Pooh to the tree. Pooh convinces Piglet to go back the way he came, and Piglet will now be waiting for us back on the ground level. Before we talk to Piglet, however, let's talk to Owl, who is also up here as well in the corner. Owl flies in a circle and then lands in this corner for a few seconds before then flying off again in a continuous loop. If you catch him when he lands, you can talk to him and he will join the others. As we know by now, once we return a character to Eeyore's house, Sora also comes back here, and this is why I had Pooh talk to Piglet before we talked to Owl, because now we don't have to make our way back up again. Piglet is standing down here at the entrance of the small hole beside the flowers, and after speaking to Piglet, he will join the others as our final character in the 100 Acre Woods, completing the minigame. Congratulations, once all the characters have been found and returned to Eeyore's pen, the minigame will end, showing you the time in which it was completed, and afterwards the final torn page will turn into our last reward, an EXP ring. And now we have successfully completed the 100 Acre Woods. Congratulations, well done.
So glad we're all together again.
Our final set of mini-games are the time trials in the Olympus Coliseum. As we know, throughout the game, various different tournaments, known as cups, are available to enter. Each cup has us defeat waves of enemies until we beat the first seed and become the new champions of that cup. Once we've completed a cup for the first time, we're able to enter with just Sora. And if we manage to win this solo, we unlock the time trial for that cup. These time trials are considered mini-games in Kingdom Hearts and must therefore be completed for the journal. There are 4 cups in Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, and for each one I will guide you round by round for the quickest method to clear the time trials. Time trials are much harder than normal runs and so require you to be at a higher level than when you beat the cup. If you're really overleveled, you can beat the time trials easily and obtain some ridiculous times, but assuming we're not overpowered, I'm going to go into details and strategies that don't require this, so you can complete the time trials as early in the game as possible and receive your rewards. So before we attempt any time trial, let's go over some prerequisites and important information. Number 1, there will be a certain level which I will always recommend getting to before attempting any time trial. Although having all the skills and tactics are great, at the end of the day, if you're too weak to beat the rounds quickly, then it won't matter. Your damage output will be too low, resulting in a poor time, and you'll be at risk of being defeated. So before we begin each cup, I will always prescribe a recommended level for you to get to. These levels are field tested, and attempting the time trials at a lower level than the ones I recommend makes them noticeably harder. So unless you have much better equipment than I do, which is unlikely, get to the level I suggest to make it much easier on yourself. Now let's go into detail from top to bottom in the pause menu for these time trials, starting with items. This will depend on how far in the game you are and what resources you have acquired, but as a general rule, you want to equip Sora with all Ethers, an item which restores 3 MP, because as you'll soon see, magic is the key to optimizing these time trials, but more on that later. When you're further in the game and we go to complete the final time trial, in the Hades Cup, we will substitute the Ethers for Elixirs, which fully restore Sora's HP, as well as his much larger MP gauge. I also like to fully equip Donald with Ethers, as he will be of great assistance to you in these time trials, so it's important that he has the ability to keep his MP gauge healthy. Donald and Goofy will of course use any items that are equipped to them on Sora if he needs them, so it's never a bad thing to give them items. I tend to give Goofy healing items such as potions or high potions, especially during the early cups in the game, where Ethers are scarce. However, I find giving Goofy a mix of healing items, such as Mega Potions and MP restoring Ethers, gives the best balance later in the game, when such items are in more abundance. Goofy will of course use them to heal himself, as he has no other way of doing this without items. He will heal Donald if he falls in battle, quite common in the more difficult cups, and of course will heal Sora if he needs it. And this combined with Donald's healing magic lets us conserve as much of our magic as possible to use offensively without needing it to heal ourselves. If you can spare it, especially for the Hades Cup, feel free to equip all your best items, like elixirs, mega potions, etc., to everyone in the party, as these time trials are the best uses for these items in my opinion. The only other time you may need to fully equip the party with items is for boss fights, but there are only really a handful of difficult bosses in the game which require such preparation, and even then they aren't quite as useful as most boss fights don't last that long, whereas these time trials can be a war of attrition, and items become more and more useful as we go on. But what if I lose the time trial? Aren't all my best items gone then? Correct. That is why I will always recommend saving before attempting any time trial, but I will come back to that soon. Next we have equipment. It's crucial that we equip weapons that have magic boosting properties, and the same goes for our accessories. The best Keyblade early game for spell enhancing is the Spellbinder Keyblade, which I use for the Pegasus and Hercules Cup, and then later swap out for the Oath Keeper during the Hades Cup to give me more damage output, as the Spellbinder was just too weak to deal unnecessary damage during the boss fights. Of course, the best overall Keyblade is the Ultima Weapon, obtained through Moogle Synthesis, but this requires a great deal of work and is the hardest weapon to obtain in the game. So I, like the majority of you, settled for a more obtainable Keyblade, and the same goes for my accessories. There are of course many fantastic accessories in the game that will help you more than the ones I use, but again I want to show you all that these time trials are very doable with the right strategies and don't require you to be over leveled or have the best weapons or accessories. Of course, if you're struggling and want to increase your chances, then by all means go and forge the Ultima Weapon, and while you're there, forge the best accessories. I will leave a list down below of the best ideal setup for completing the time trials if you're interested, alongside the actual setup that I use in this guide, but know that it is very doable with a less than optimal setup. If you want more info on how to forge the Ultima Weapon and or the best accessories in the game, check out my synthesis guide, which will be linked down in the description. And if you need to know how to obtain any of the Keyblades, staffs for Donald or shields for Goofy that I use throughout these time trials, check down below in the description, where I will leave a link to my weapons guide. Next up we have abilities. Now for the most part everyone will have access to different abilities, since most abilities are learnt by leveling up, and the level at which you learn certain abilities is different depending on the weapon you chose way back at the beginning of the game, either the rod, shield or sword, while others are learnt by getting far enough in the story. Since we will all have different abilities on Sora, if I recommend an ability and you don't have it, then don't worry, you may still be able to complete the time trial, especially the first 3. However, when it comes to the Hades Cup time trial, there are certain abilities which can make or break a run, but we will talk about them when we get there. Details on how to learn each recommended ability, and each ability that I use for each time trial will be down below in the description. Luckily, the level at which Donald and Goofy learn their abilities don't vary, so it's much easier to create a setup for them. Honestly, there are only a handful of abilities which I consider optimal for each time trial, and if you have any of these abilities, make sure they're equipped. We equip abilities by using AP, ability points, and because AP is limited, we probably won't be able to equip everything, nor is everything useful, hence I've come up with a list of abilities in order of priority in which you should equip and use your AP on. So I'm going to run through a list of all the best abilities for the time trials, starting with abilities that make a huge difference in our runs. There are 6 of these abilities which I consider top tier for time trials, which are in order of importance. Number 1, MP Haste, an ability which increases the rate at which MP is recovered when we attack an enemy. Number 2, MP Rage, an ability that restores MP when damage is taken. We actually learn this ability twice, and therefore it can be stacked for a more powerful effect. This may come as a surprise, but I've put at number 3, MP Gift, an ability exclusive to Goofy that allows him to sacrifice 2 of his MP to give another party member 3 MP. Because Goofy can't use magic, his MP is only used for offensive shield techniques, which we can actually customize for Goofy to rarely use. And so his MP is basically used to give Sora or Donald a free ether, which, when combined with the aforementioned abilities MP Rage and MP Haste, turns Goofy into a magic restoring machine. Why is this so important? Well, if you haven't noticed yet, all these abilities revolve around the aspect of keeping our party's MP gauge healthy, and this is so important because magic is the key to completing time trials. You'll soon see yourself when we get into the time trials how incredible magic, specifically thunder magic, can be at destroying rounds in mere seconds, and this is reflected not just in our abilities but our items, weapons, accessories and customization as well, but I will go more in depth on all of this shortly. Note it says in the description of this ability that it requires only 1 MP, but this is actually a typo on Square Enix's part. It does require 2 MP to use. After learning this, Goofy can heal us with items and restore our magic using his, becoming a real asset for our time trials. At number 4 I've put the ability Combo Master. This is an ability that lets Sora continue a combo even when it doesn't hit. Now this may not seem like much, but the fact that we're able to continue our combos and not have to stop if we miss is crucial for saving time, and when combined with some of the other abilities on this list can destroy entire groups of Heartless, because it lets us fire off a combo finisher in one go without being forced to connect our first couple of hits. This is really crucial for the Hades Cup when we really can't afford to stop swinging just because we miss. One of the best abilities in the game in my opinion. I'm going to show a side-by-side comparison of when we have Combo Master equipped and when we don't, to show you how much of a difference it makes. At number 5 I've put Ars Arcanum, our greatest damage dealing ability, which lets Sora swing with a flurry of attacks which are initially invincible. This is our main offensive ability and is used in time trials, specifically in boss battles for quick finishes. And rounding out the top tier time trial abilities is Leaf Bracer, arguably the best ability in Kingdom Hearts Final Mix for general use. This ability makes the user invulnerable while they cast healing magic. This is definitely the best ability to prevent runs from ending, as you can always heal yourself in a bad spot uninterrupted. Very important for tough rounds and boss fights. A highly recommended ability. Next we're going to drop down a tier and mention some abilities that are very useful as well, just not as impactful as the big 6 mentioned above, again in order of importance. First up we have Strike Raid, an ability which lets us throw our Keyblade from a distance up to 5 times and gives us invincibility while doing so. This ability is our best way of dealing with Heartless that are immune to magic. Ars Arcanum can be activated when we're close to our target and used to rack up damage quickly on nearby enemies, whereas Strike Raid is activated from a distance when enemies are out of reach, and these two abilities together can make a great combo. Now although Strike Raid is probably my favourite offensive ability in Kingdom Hearts, it really does have major downsides when used in a time trial that you must be aware of. Number 1, it's extremely slow, so if you're going to use it you must be aware of when it's appropriate to do so, as there are more than likely quicker and therefore better options available, as a time trial is all about speed at the end of the day. And number 2, both Strike Raid and Ars Arcanum are both activated using the triangle button, and each one is activated depending on the distance between you and your target, like I mentioned before, so you must be very careful not to make the mistake of activating the wrong ability, because you will not only lose time but also valuable MP. Ars Arcanum also costs 3 MP to use, whereas Strike Raid only costs 2 MP. So if you're not aware of your MP gauge, you may make the mistake of trying to use Ars Arcanum with only 2 MP, which will trigger Strike Raid instead, something that's happened to me many a time. Please note the Strike Raid becomes more redundant as we gain levels and get better and better. It is useful at the level that I show, but if you become powerful enough you can spam Gravity instead of Strike Raid to finish off enemies that are immune to normal magic like Thundaga. That is info more for my advanced players, and I will come back to this if I decide to make a minigame guide part 2. At number 8 I've put Hurricane Blast, a powerful aerial combo finisher which has huge range and is very useful for clearing out groups of weak enemies, especially those immune to thunder like yellow operas. Combine this with Combo Master and you can start firing off powerful aerial combos at will. My go-to standard attack outside of magic for the time trials. I'm going to put Guard on this list as well. This is a very useful ability which lets us defend ourselves against attacks and even deflect certain attacks back at the enemy. Useful against Yuffie, Leon, Cloud, Hercules and Hades amongst others. I will get to specific uses of course when we dive into each round. Another useful ability is Counter Attack, an ability which lets Sora attack immediately after deflecting or clashing with an attack, or after using the aforementioned Guard ability. This ability is very useful against certain enemies or bosses such as Cloud, and can catch and one-shot enemies as well. And it has the added bonus of always landing a critical hit and restoring a little bit of MP, which is always welcome. And finally, I want to make a specific mention for Sonic Blade. This is an ability which lets us lunge at an enemy multiple times with invincibility, with the ability to stun the enemy as well. This sounds like a great ability, and it really is. However, it just gets outshined later in the game by Ars Arcanum due to higher and quicker damage output. However, the great advantage of Sonic Blade is that we can learn it very early in the game, and so becomes our best offensive ability for the first couple time trials, and although not quite as useful in the Phil Cup, it really shines in the Pegasus Cup as you'll soon see. So this will be equipped until Ars Arcanum is learnt. Now let's go into some honourable mentions. These are abilities that are equipped outside of the top 10, not quite as influential to the time trials, but useful in their own right. They are in no particular order. Scan, an ability that lets you see the enemy's HP bar. At the end of the day, knowledge is power, and knowing when enemies, particularly bosses, are close to being finished, allows us to strategize and attack accordingly. This stops us wasting an Ars Arcanum, for example, on a boss that's about to be defeated. I found the game unplayable without this ability, and I'm sure most of you are the same, but I thought it warranted a mention. Dodge Roll, our best grounded movement option. Lets us close the distance on enemies, or to avoid attacks. Second Wind, an ability learnt by Donald and Goofy, which lets them recover quickly with full HP after being knocked. Useful for boss fights like Hades and the Rock Titan. Second Chance, an ability learnt by the party that has a 32% chance of allowing the party member to survive an attack that would otherwise finish them. As Sora, we don't really need this ability as we don't plan to let our HP get low anyway. But for Donald and Goofy, this ability can let them stay in the fight for a little longer, which can make the difference. Useful against bosses that deal loads of damage, like the Rock Titan. Sliding Dash can be useful as well to close the distance on enemies without consuming MP. The last ability I want to mention is Aerial Sweep, which lets you attack enemies with a spinning attack, capable of hitting multiple targets, better than just attacking normally. But again, as we get further down this list, we start to come to abilities that have less and less of an impact on the time trials, so I'm not going to mention any more abilities. Just know that this is my personal list of abilities in order of priority on what you should spend your AP on. You may prefer other abilities, which is fine, but I'm adamant about the top 6, and I believe that the top 10 abilities listed are of utmost importance, and hopefully I fully showcase why during my run. Again, just a reminder that the amount of abilities that we can equip depends on how many AP, ability points, we have. The more AP we have, the more abilities we can equip. Now, some abilities cost more AP than others, and you're more than likely not going to have enough AP to equip all your abilities, nor do you want to, as some abilities are useless in the Coliseum, such as Treasure Magnet, while others like Ragnarok interfere with our other abilities like Ars Arcanum, as they're both activated by pressing triangle. So use common sense to take off abilities that are not useful, to clear up AP for the abilities that I recommend if you're following along. You get AP by leveling up or by using AP ups. Again, if you want to know the locations of any AP up, then check out my AP up, defense up and power up guide, which will be linked down in the description. Now there are so many abilities in the game such as Critical Plus or Berserk that you'll see me use, but going into detail on every ability I use is beyond the scope of this video. So just before I move on, remember that we all have access to different abilities on Sora depending on our weapon choice at the beginning of the game. So if you want more detail on this or information on how to learn any of the abilities in this guide, then check the description where I will leave a link to take you to my abilities guide whenever that's made. And lastly, let's talk about Customize. Customize allows us to delegate 3 spells to the shortcut menu. You get to the shortcut menu by pressing L1, and then by pressing the corresponding buttons you can cast the assigned spell. This is the fastest way to cast magic and is crucial to completing the time trials. What magic we use varies slightly depending on the cup, but in general we assign Stop, Thunder and Cure as our 3 spells, and this will become obvious why when we start the time trials. Stop magic is used for different bosses that can be exploited using this spell for a quick vanquish, and for specific Heartless such as Black Fungus. Stopra is better than Stop because we need it to last long enough for us to deal enough damage, and Stop ends too quickly. On the other side of the coin, Stopga, the fully upgraded form of Stop magic, lasts unnecessarily long for a time trial with all our magic enhancing accessories, but has the advantage of being better for boss fights for the same reason. Stopper then is better for normal rounds and lasts long enough on bosses to at least finish an aerial combo, and for this reason I believe Stopper is actually superior for time trials. Now of course we can't downgrade our magic, so if you have Stopga then there's nothing you can do about it, so don't worry. Continue with Stopga and you'll find you'll even have certain advantages. Thundara and later Thundaga is our best offensive spell for clearing 90% of rounds and becomes our bread and butter after the fill cup. And finally, our current form of healing magic is used to prevent runs from ending and is there as a form of security. You can swap Cure for Blizzard in the early cups for the ability to clear rounds that are immune to thunder, but Cure is necessary for the later cups, which when combined with the ability Leaf Bracer that we talked about earlier, is a no-brainer. If anyone would like to know how to learn or upgrade any of the spells I recommend, then check out my magic guide, which will be linked down below in the description. I'm sure most of you knew about the customize menu for spells, but while here you can also customize how Donald and Goofy fight. For Donald, make sure offensive magic is set to constantly. This ensures the use of attacking spells to help us clear rounds as soon as possible, and is very helpful. And for both Donald and Goofy, make sure HP and MP items are set to only in emergency, lest they waste our best items before they're needed. It's best to have Goofy stick to regular attacks to conserve magic for the MP gift ability we talked about earlier, but other than this you can customize however you want. I will of course show you my particular setup before each cup if you'd like to copy. Of course all this info on customization will be left down in the description, alongside everything else I use to complete the various time trials. Last and certainly not least, once we have everything set up and ready to go for the time trial, make sure you save the game. This way if you lose, you don't lose all the items you may have used, or all the time you spent prepping. Just soft reset by pressing L1, L2, or 1 or 2, start and select at the same time, and this will take you back to the main menu where you can reload the save file, and because we saved after setting everything up, we can go straight back into the time trial. So before we actually start completing the cups, I want to touch on some combat basics that will make these time trials easier. Because this is a time trial, it benefits us to perfect some of these techniques, which will have a big picture effect on the whole minigame. So when we go to attack an enemy, we have a choice to either stay on the ground or attack them in the air. Of course, some enemies are too far from the ground and require you to attack in the air. As a general rule, you want to be attacking or doing your combos in the air. Why? Well, because they're quicker. If we look at a comparison, you can see how much quicker I can attack in the air when compared to the ground. The main reason for this is because after a combo, or even after a regular attack, there is a delay between the end of the attack and when Sora can attack again. However, if we finish the combo in the air, as soon as we land we're able to attack straight away by jumping again, cutting out the delay time. The ability to produce combos at a much faster rate can be combined with other abilities, such as Hurricane Blast, to create a much wider area of attack and can vanquish multiple enemies in one swoop. So we now know that our preferred form of attacks are aerial attacks. To get in the air we must jump. Now we have 3 types of jump in Kingdom Hearts, and which one we use is important as well. We have a normal jump. Later on in Monster we get the high jump ability, but there is also a shorter version of the standard jump. Instead of pressing the jump button fully, we can tap it to do what I call a low jump, the opposite of a high jump, or a short jump, whatever you prefer. Doing a low jump will allow us to stay as close to the ground as possible when performing an aerial combo, and because we're closer to the ground we can start another combo quicker by jumping again. This may not seem like much, but it makes a huge difference, especially when we combine it with magic. The casting of magic operates in the same way as our attacks, so normally when we cast magic there is a significant delay, even more so than attacks, before we can cast again. However, when we continually jump and cast magic, we're able to cast it in succession much quicker. The only spell we should not use a short jump for is Cure. The reason is because when we go to cast Cure we have to select a target first. Now this may not seem like much, but this short delay makes the difference between the spell activating or not. So instead, if you want to use Cure, do a regular or high jump and then cast it. You will see me utilising short jumps combined with Thundaga mostly, as it's the best offensive spell for clearing rounds quickly. During boss fights where possible, you'll see me utilising this with Stopper as well as regular combos, where I low jump, cast stop magic, low jump, combo, low jump, stop, etc. and repeat to rack up massive damage in the shortest possible time. During rounds where the enemies are resistant to magic, I will utilise my offensive abilities such as Strike Raid and the more powerful Ars Arcanum for boss fights. Outside of all that, I will just perform a regular 1-2-3 air combo to quickly finish the round. Now typically if we miss a hit we will not be able to utilise the aforementioned combo, Hurricane Blast, because our combo ends if we miss. This is why it's crucial to have the Combo Master ability equipped, as it will let us swing freely without worrying about missing. Most of the time the first or second swing will miss, but the distance covered by our finishing combo, especially if Hurricane Blast is equipped, will more than close the distance on our target while potentially finishing off other Heartless in the vicinity. Now most of these abilities, spells and strategies only really apply to our final cup, the Hades Cup, as that's by far the most difficult one to complete. So don't worry so much if you're not that far in the game, just keep all this information in the back of your head while we complete the easier couple of cups, and come back here anytime using the timestamps if you would like a refresher. With that said, I think we're ready to begin completing the time trials, starting with the Fill Cup. Now to enter a time trial, we speak to Phil in the Olympus Coliseum's lobby. We select a cup and then go down to time trial. If you can only enter together as an option, this means you haven't completed the regular version of this cup yet, so go do that first. Once you've done this, then you have access to enter solo, just Sora. This means you can now attempt to complete the cup with Sora only. And once you've done that, you now have the ability to enter the time trial of said cup. Now I'm not going to go into detail on how to complete the cups normally, or with Sora only. That's beyond the scope of this video. However, like I said before, These time trials are by far the hardest version of each cup, and this requires us to play at a higher level than normal, with good strategies anyway, meaning that by watching my time trials you also get to see the best ways to beat the cups. So if you struggle to beat a cup or even a certain round, then feel free to use this guide as a reference for that. Remember that timestamps for everything, even every round in every cup, will be down in the description. Now we know how to enter the time trial and what's required to unlock it. Upon selecting the time trial, we will begin the cup as normal. However, there will now be a large timer on the upper left of the screen, beginning when the round starts and stopping once all enemies are defeated. We are given different times for each cup, and if the timer reduces to 0 before we beat all the seeds, we lose and must start again. Awareness of which rounds are coming up and which require your MP to be healthy is vital information and is another good use for this guide. The first 3 cups have 9 rounds to beat within 3 minutes. And the final cup, the Hades Cup, has a whopping 49 rounds to beat, some of which have boss fights within 20 minutes. With so much time on the clock, it's nice to know, even for the earlier cups, how we are for time. Now, because I've beaten all the cups and come up with the various strategies to beat each round as soon as possible, I know what a good time looks like, and how much time we should have on the clock heading into the final round or a boss fight, for example. So I've decided to put a recommended time after each round to give everyone a sense of what a good, average and bad time looks like. Now, I know not every round will be perfect, nor is this required, but if after a round you check your timer and it's within the acceptable range indicated with yellow, you will be on track to beat the time trial. Healthy range, green, means you're well on your way to beat the cup and can afford a bad round here or there. If you're in the red zone, you're in a less than optimal time and will have to make up time in another round or you'll be very close to losing. Not impossible to lose in the red zone, but not ideal. If you're below the red zone, just restart. Believe me, I have a bit of leeway in each direction for my time, so if you're outside the zone, then there's little to no hope for you to complete the run, at least not with this guide anyway. Unless every round afterwards is very good, which is highly unlikely because not every round will go your way, and that's fine. That's why I left some wiggle room. These guidelines are here for you to judge your own runs and decide whether or not you should reset and try again. I've put together these times with my own experience, and hopefully they help give you a sense of where you stand as you complete each round. So with that huge introduction out of the way, let's get specific now and jump into each time trial, going step by step through all the rounds so we can complete our final set of minigames. Like I said before, this guide is here to help people complete all the minigames in Kingdom Hearts, not a guide to achieve the highest score or the fastest time possible. I may make a minigame guide part 2 where I explain how to get these scores, but for now I'm sticking to this general guide. And just a quick note before we begin, you may be completing these time trials at a much higher level than me, in which case some tips may not be relevant to you, such as conserving magic, or when to use items, and some strategies may be redundant, but they are here as reference if you need some help or advice for particular rounds. So let's start the time trials. So the first of the 4 tournaments we get access to is the Phil Cup, available after we seal Traverse Town's keyhole. Okay, so like I mentioned, before each time trial I will go over my entire setup, which you will then see me use in my time trial run, along with highlighting and explaining any specific details. Again, all of this can be found in the description. The recommended level for the Phil Cup time trial is 25. Sora and Donald are fully equipped with ethers and Goofy with potions, as I had no more ethers to spare, and extra healing is always welcome. The best Keyblade I had at this point was the Jungle King. Because I'm so early in the game, I don't have any magic boosting accessories or Keyblades, in which case we go for strength to finish enemies as quick as possible. So I have the White Fang and Brave Warrior equipped. Donald has the Morning Star staff alongside a Thundara ring and an Inferno band. Goofy has the Smasher Shield equipped and has been decked out in 3 Proterra chains. Here's a look at Sora's abilities. Counter attack being very useful to deflect the hammer legs, gauntlets and power wiles attacks. Dodge roll for quick movement. Scan because it's always important to know how much HP an enemy has. And sliding dash to close the distance on enemies quickly. Donald has both MP haste and MP rage, very useful like we spoke about before. Goofy has a couple of offensive abilities equipped, nothing special or extraordinary. Just make a note that any abilities that are useless in the Olympus Coliseum, such as Lucky Strike, Tech Boost, etc., can all be unequipped, at least for the time trial, to free up AP for the more useful and often costly abilities, such as MP Haste, Rage, etc., and this goes for all members of the party. And finally, we customize our spells. We have Thunder there for a certain round where this is very useful. Blizzard is actually our main offensive spell, used only for the fill cup really, until we get Thundara, because it is stronger than Thunder, and we use it to clear out most rounds. And of course Cure for healing. Donald has been set to constantly use offensive magic, and everything else occasionally, with items only used in an emergency. Here's my setup for Goofy, not as important as Donald, but similarly, make sure items are set to only an emergency to conserve them. Now let's save the game after we have everything set up in case we have to restart. Furthermore, we can now begin the Fill Cup time trial. So for our 10th seed, we want to spam Blizzard, trying to line up our spells to hit multiple Heartless. Throughout this whole cup, don't be afraid to spam magic in the rounds where applicable, even more so than I do, as we have plenty of ethers, and believe me, it's hard to use them all up. Here I recommend casting Blizzard at the beginning to take out the red Nocturnes and the Power Wilds. Afterwards you have the choice to just attack normally, or to finish the round with Blizzard. Here I always like to focus on the hammer legs first. The idea is that by the time you take out the hammer legs, hopefully a few power wilds will also be defeated by either being caught in a crossfire or thanks to our friends Donald and Goofy. Again, magic should be used freely, but if you can, just take them out with normal attacks. This is another round where Blizzard is very useful, taking out the red Nocturnes in one hit, always trying to catch as many Heartless with each spell, and being accurate with our attacks on the remaining yellow Nocturnes makes for an easy round. Here we run into our first large body. We take these guys down by constantly casting Blizzard, and same goes for the Power Wilds when necessary. Make sure we have at least 2 MP going into the next round. If not, use an ether.
That's the power of the Keyblade.
This is the round we have Thunder equipped on Customize for, as the blue Rhapsodies are immune to Blizzard. So low jump into the middle of the enemies, cast Thunder twice, and then finish off the gauntlets with a couple of hits. Easy as that. Now we want to enter the next round with some MP, as it's the last round where magic is really useful. So use an ether if you have less than 2 MP bars. First and foremost, before we even start attacking the large bodies, make sure every green Requiem is vanquished, so they can't heal. Afterwards, let's do an aerial combo on one large body, and when it turns to charge at Sora, finish him off with Blizzard. Same goes for our second large body to end the round. I don't mind casting Blizzard in the beginning, but if I could do this round again, I would just focus my attacks on the hammer legs or the gauntlets and hope the power wilds get caught within the combo like back at Seed 8. I also think focusing on the gauntlets is preferred over the hammer legs, as they can be defeated a lot quicker, and it's better to get them out of the way first, as they do more damage than their counterpart. Definitely easier than the previous seed. Here just lock onto the armoured torso and aerial combo it until it's finished. Most of the time at least a couple of the other Heartless will be caught in the attacks. Afterwards we just need to attack the remaining Heartless with our Keyblade. This can be time consuming as they can float around quite quickly, especially the yellow operas, and this is why I recommend at least 30 seconds for this final round to give you time to catch the last few Heartless. Afterwards we obtain the Tech Boost ability, and congratulations, you have completed the Phil Cup time trial. Next up we have our second tournament at the Olympus Coliseum, the Pegasus Cup, unlocked after we complete Monstro. So for the Pegasus Cup time trial, I recommend level 40. This may seem high, but trust me, this time trial is quite difficult. For items on Sora, I'm going to fill up once again on Ethers, throwing in a Mega Ether because I can spare it. Same for Donald. Goofy gets a bit of everything, some Ethers, potions, even an elixir. As long as Sora and Donald have Ethers, you can throw anything on Goofy. Now this is going to be the first cup where we see magic really start to take over, because we now have access to the amazing Spellbinder Keyblade, which greatly enhances our magic, along with accessories such as Magic Armlet. My final accessory equipped on Sora was the Angel Bangle, with Donald getting the other magic boosting accessory I had, Ray of Light, alongside an Inferno Band. For weapons, I equipped Donald with the Silver Mallet. Goofy had the Golem Shield alongside 3 accessories, White Fang, Thundara Ring, and a Golem Chain. Again, this is just what I used. If you have access to better equipment, by all means throw it on. Just remember that the focus is on magic. In terms of abilities, we see the first appearance of Hurricane Blast, the ability that lets us unleash a powerful aerial finishing combo, Guard to block against Yuffie's projectiles in the final seed, and we see the first of our most powerful attacks in the game with Sonic Blade, a move that allows us to become invincible while slashing at an enemy from a distance. This is a great ability, and the one we will utilise the most against the bosses of the final seed in this time trial. Unfortunately, in light of better options later on, we will not see the return of this ability in our runs. Again, your standard dodge roll, scan, etc. are all still present. Remember to take off abilities that have no combat value in the Coliseum, such as Tech Boost, to free up AP for Sonic Blade and Hurricane Blast among others. Don't equip Strike Rate if you have it, it's not useful for this cup, and can be activated in lieu of Sonic Blade, as they're both activated with Triangle. Donald has MP Haste and Rage like before, but this time has brought with him Leaf Bracer, an amazing ability I spoke about earlier, which lets Donald heal without taking damage. Goofy also has MP Rage this time, alongside Tornado and other offensive abilities to help the team. There are big changes when it comes to customization. Back in the Phil Cup, our main offensive spell was Blizzard. However, now that we have Thundara, that will become our most utilised spell, as it's strong enough with the magic enhancing equipment to one-shot most Heartless, and has a homing quality where it actually targets enemies in the area. We're going to equip Stopra as well, very important for a certain seed within the cup, and of course Old Reliable Cure as our third and final spell. At this point, if you don't have at least Thundara, go learn it first, since the strategies from here on out revolve around it. If you need info on learning this spell, check out my magic guide, links will be down below in the description. Here's my setup for Donald, the same as before, and here's a look at Goofy as well. With that, we are ready to start the time trial. Remember to always save beforehand, so that if we have to reset, we can just reload the save file and jump back into it. You may want to do this if all your items were used up during your failed attempt. So, let's get started. Here we want to jump into the center and cast Thundara. One should be enough to end the round. Quick note, we always want to jump towards the enemies so as many get caught in the spell as possible. Same again, rocking Thundara until the round is complete, remembering to keep our MP nice and healthy.
Thunder! Thunder! Here!
Here we want to cast Thundara again while high jumping in the air, making sure that we're close enough to the Heartless so they all get caught.
Here!
Here we cast Thundara just to deal with the pot spiders and then proceed to pick off the remaining Heartless, which should go down in one hit. Again, a couple of Thundaras, very easy round.
Here! Thunder!
Here's an interesting round. These are black fungus Heartless that have the ability to turn invincible, which they will do if they stay alive long enough. So the strategy I recommend is casting Stop. I did it twice for good measure, as Stop magic does stack, and then proceeded to combo each of them once. Now I've seen different strategies such as casting Gravity etc, but I find they are riskier and harder to pull off at a lower level, whereas casting Stop is the easiest and most consistent method in my opinion at this stage. Again, casting Thundara for another easy round. You're starting to get the idea of how we beat most rounds in these time trials by now, I'm sure. Again, Goofy's MP gift and Donald's ethers always on standby to restore our magic. I wonder if you've guessed what we do here. Just make sure you have full magic going into our final seed.
Here!
Now for the hardest round, and why we need to be at such a high level. Leon and Yuffie. We always want to defeat Yuffie first, as she can not only attack from a distance, but also heal herself and Leon. We can deflect her shurikens, which can stun her. But essentially we want to get close to her and unleash Sonic Blade multiple times. Sonic Blade also has a stun effect, so if Yuffie is stunned, hit her a few times before releasing Sonic Blade again. We continually activate Sonic Blade, taking advantage of its invincibility to bypass Leon if he tries to attack us, utilising our ethers, or if we're lucky, our team members' items or abilities to restore our MP. Once Yuffie is down, we can focus on Leon. After dodging or deflecting an attack, we can combo him. Similarly to how we short jump to cast magic, we can short jump and combo Leon. However, we don't have to finish the combo. We can extend it by doing 1-2 jump, 1-2 jump, etc. If you're quicker than me, you'll have better results. Once he starts powering up, hit him a few times, and then when he goes back to his regular stance, activate Sonic Blade. We don't activate Sonic Blade while he's powering up, because he basically takes no damage while charging. If you do a finishing combo on him, he may be sent flying, in which case be ready to use your guard ability, like with Yuffie's shurikens, to deflect the attack back at Leon and stun him for the victory. This was a really solid run, and a good example of how to destroy the Pegasus Cup time trial. Once we complete the time trial, we are rewarded with a Dark Matter. Okay, so our third cup is the Hercules Cup, unlocked after we sealed the keyhole for both Halloween Town and Neverland. Now thankfully the Hercules Cup time trial is actually an easier time trial to complete than the Pegasus Cup one. Well, how's that possible? I thought the cups got harder as we progressed. While this is true, it's not for the reason you expect. The reason the Hercules Cup time trial is so easy is because once we reach the final seed to fight Hercules, we can actually pause and select Restart. Now normally in any other cup this would take us right back to the start of the cup, but here it actually brings us right back to the beginning of the fight with Hercules. But this time you may notice something different. The timer is actually frozen. I'm not sure why this happens, but it does, and I'm certainly not complaining. So why not utilise this to our advantage? Therefore, all we need to do is make our way past the first 8 seeds until we reach Hercules, and then when the battle starts, pause and select Restart, so the timer's no longer an issue. And as long as we defeat Hercules, the time trial will be complete. Don't worry, I'll go into strategies for Hercules when we get there. For the Hercules Cup time trial, because we're going to be utilising this exploit, we don't need to be at a much higher level than when we completed the cup for the first time, unlike the other cups. But I personally recommend level 45 just to be safe, which I'm sure you're close to at this point anyway. In terms of items, Sora has been loaded with ethers, as well as some mega ethers, which restore MP to the whole party. Donald follows suit with all ethers, and Goofy gets a healthy mix of ethers, mega ethers and mega potions to support the team. You'll notice as I get further in the game and towards the more difficult time trials, the quality of items increase. As I said in the intro, I believe that these time trials are among the best uses for these items, so don't be afraid to give your party good stuff. Just remember to always save beforehand in case we lose so that we can reset if need be and keep our best items. On to equipment now. We see the return of the Spellbinder Keyblade, still the best key to use at this point in my opinion. It increases our MP gauge while also significantly enhancing the power of our magic. Alongside this I have the Magic Armlet, Ray of Light and Golem Chain, all accessories which either enhance my magic or increase strength if you have no more magic enhancing ones to equip like me here. Donald gets the Mage's Staff, the best staff that I had for Donald at this point. Remember to always choose a staff that raises Donald's MP, as strength isn't important for him. Alongside this I've given Donald an Energy Bangle and Element Ring to boost his defense and keep him alive a little longer. Turning our attention to Goofy now, he's given the Herc Shield, his most powerful shield that I had at this point. With that he gets a White Fang, Angel Bangle and Guard Earring for accessories. With Goofy you want to focus on strength for his weapons and defense for his accessories generally. Here's a look at some of the abilities on the team. Sora has MP Haste, Critical Plus, Ars Arcanum, Blitz, Hurricane Blast, Guard, 2 combo plus abilities. Sonic Blade is taken off as we now have Ars Arcanum. Counter Attack, this ability really shines in this cup against Cloud as you'll soon see, so special mention goes to this ability. Slapshot, Dodge Roll, Scan, and Sliding Dash. Mostly all abilities we've talked about before. Again, for more info on abilities, check out the time trial intro using the timestamps in the description to take you to the point in the guide where I explain in order of importance which abilities should be equipped. Donald has Berserk, MP Haste, MP Rage. I've taken off Treasure Magnet to clear up AP for the other abilities such as Second Wind and the powerful Leaf Bracer. Goofy has Berserk, MP Gift, MP Rage, Second Chance, Second Wind, Tornado, Charge and Rocket for his abilities. I also have High Jump equipped to the party, but also Glide this time, used to avoid Hercules' most annoying attack. For customization we assign Stopra, Thundara and Cura once again. Here's Donald's setup as well as Goofy's. And that's everything you need to know before we begin the Hercules Cup time trial. Again, this whole setup will be posted in the description for you to read. And once again, if you'd like to know where to find any items, weapons, accessories, or how to learn any abilities or spells, check the description where I will link you to the appropriate guide on this channel for each. With that said, let's begin the time trial. Here we want to begin the Hercules Cup by jumping into the centre and casting Thundara a couple of times to clear our first seed. Very easy, should take about 5 seconds. We're going to do the same again and cast a couple of Thundara, and then take out the Air Pirate Heartless with a quick combo. Any stragglers during any seed can be taken out with a quick Thundara after locking onto them. Here we want to cast Stopra on the battleship, and while it's stationary, attack it, but also cast Thundara as the Pirate Heartless get close to finish them off at the same time. Once Stop wears off, you should have inflicted more than enough damage, even with the weaker Spellbinder Keyblade. Feel free to use magic as much as you want, as you and your party have many ways to restore it, as you see here. The easiest seed of the cup, 2 Thundaras, and we're done. We should be over 2 minutes 20 seconds easily.
Nothing to it.
Hit this rare truffle once, and while you're waiting for it to disappear, fill up your MP gauge with an ether, if needed, to prepare for our next round where we fight Cloud. Okay, so some details about fighting Cloud. In the beginning, most of the time he will lunge at you, jump in the air and land with an attack. You can't guard the attack and proceed to combo him with Ars Arcanum, as he is vulnerable after landing. He should be damaged into his final HP bar now, and we want to finish him off quickly before he begins powering up. While he's defending, abuse Stopra, combo him, and when Stop wears off, proceed to use your counter attack ability that we spoke about before to take him out before he begins his more powerful attacks, where he turns invincible and flies around the arena. If he isn't defeated before he powers up, do your best to utilize your guard ability to deflect his attacks until he lands on the ground again and is no longer invincible. Now we just repeat what we've seen before. The combination from all this damage should defeat him in one fell swoop, as seen here. Another easy round. A couple of Thundaras should leave you with just Air Pirates, which, as we've seen before, can be quickly vanquished within a couple of hits. Here we want to jump towards the battleships and cast Stopra. If we're lucky like I was, all Heartless will be caught in the magic. Like before, we want to simultaneously attack the battleships while casting Thunder to deal with the other Heartless. Use up all our magic here if you want, so Donald or Goofy will use any remaining ethers on you, and Goofy will use MP gift if possible, because they won't be with you for the final seed. You should also use an ether here as well to prepare for our final battle if need be. Our second and last seed is of course Hercules. Now when we arrive here, congratulations, we can pause and select restart, and this will restart the battle with Hercules. However, the timer will be frozen, so as long as you don't lose this battle, the time trial will be complete, and this is why the Hercules Cup time trial is the easiest of them all, and able to be completed around the same level that you completed the regular cup. However, my run at this point was so perfect that I decided to finish the time trial in the old-fashioned way and try to beat Hercules within the time limit fair and square. So let's go into strategies for beating Hercules. In the beginning, he will always walk around for a few seconds. So if you didn't do it beforehand, take this as an opportunity to restore your MP. Now we must grab a barrel by pressing triangle, lock onto Hercules, and then press X to throw. And if he's close enough, it will hit him, dealing damage, but most importantly will remove his invulnerability for a short while. We can extend the time in which we can hit him by casting Stopra, and then again after every short jump combo to maximise the damage we deal until our magic runs out. Once the yellow glow around Hercules reappears, he is invincible once again, and we can repeat the barrel procedure. And use the last of your ethers if possible, so that we can use stop magic on him once again. If he charges at you with a headbutt, you can use the guard ability to deflect and combo him once again. He may do a final attack where he releases a burst of energy, or jumps and releases a similar attack. But for the most part, all his attacks are easily avoidable. Besides the spinning attack, which you should try and glide to avoid. And you should have an opportunity after each one to attack. Not too hard of a fight. Once we beat Hercules, congratulations, you have finished the time trial and will receive the Critical Plus ability as your reward. On to the fourth and final cup, the Hades Cup. This is by a large margin the hardest time trial and therefore the toughest minigame. Available to us after we unlock all 3 previous cups and seal Hollow Bastion's keyhole as well. You must defeat 49 rounds within 20 minutes, which become progressively harder and features 6 boss battles. Luckily, I'm here to show you all how to beat this final challenge. So, let's begin. So the recommended level for this time trial is level 70. This ensures we are strong enough to defeat the previously mentioned bosses in the Hades Cup within a reasonable time, and gives us enough HP and defense to not be defeated so easily. As I've mentioned before, I think the time trials, and in particular the Hades Cup, is the best use of our most powerful items, and this has been reflected in what I've given the team. Sora has been decked out in elixirs, and I even threw a mega elixir in there for good measure. Donald, as always, has been fully stocked with ethers, and Goofy was given a healthy mix of mega potions and mega ethers. On Sora, I opted for the Oathkeeper Keyblade. Although it doesn't enhance our magic quite as much as the Spellbinder, I find the Spellbinder Keyblade is just too weak to deal enough damage to the multiple bosses in this cup, so we must compromise between both strength and magic, so I went with the Oathkeeper. However, we can more than make up for this loss in magic power with our new magic enhancing accessories, Rune Armlet, Moogle Badge, and the Atlas Armlet. These are some of the best accessories in the game for boosting magic, so you definitely want to use some variation of these with the same effect for your setup. Well, where do I find these amazing accessories? You actually can't find them in the game. They must be synthesized in the Moogle Workshop above Traverse Town's accessory shop. If you want to learn how to forge the best accessories in the game, then check out my synthesis guide. And if you want, while you're here, you can forge the Ultima Weapon Keyblade, much better than the Oathkeeper, and you can learn how to do all this in the same guide, which will be linked down in the description and at the end of the video. Donald was given the mighty Save the Queen staff alongside the Gaia Bangle for defense, as Donald is prone to being knocked out during this cup, and the Magic Armlet for magic enhancing to help us clear rounds quickly. I gave the mighty shield to Goofy, who has similarly been equipped with some great accessories, Holy Circuit, Master Earring, Golem Chain, and a White Fang. Needless to say, all your best accessories not used on Sora should go straight to Donald or Goofy. This Goofy setup makes him an absolute tank, giving him tons of defense, some strength, AP, as Goofy needs a good amount because he has so many abilities, and even gives him some magic resistance with the Holy Circlet. Pretty solid setup for the team, ready to do some damage. Next up, we have the ever important topic of which abilities to use. Well, on Sora I have the basic scan, dodge roll, etc. Guard for Hades amongst others, Hurricane Blast. We see Strike Rate for the first time, which is important for certain rounds, unless we're at a much higher level and have magic to spare for gravity like I said before. I have Blitz equipped here, but this was a mistake on my part. I should have taken that off and put on Counter Attack. Ars Arcanum, very important. Critical Plus for good measure. MP Haste, Combo Master, Aerial Sweep, MP Rage and Leaf Bracer, among other less important abilities equipped because I had spare AP. All the major abilities we talked about earlier you will see come into play and culminate here in this cup. Keep an eye out for their use in battle, even if I don't mention them. Donald has really improved since we last saw him. This time he has MP Haste, MP Rage, Second Wind, Leaf Bracer, another MP Rage, and Second Chance. Because Donald doesn't get many abilities, you should have enough AP to equip all these abilities after removing the less useful ones. Goofy has a lot of abilities as useful, with the standouts being Second Wind, Second Chance, MP Rage, the amazing MP Gift, MP Haste, and a second MP Rage for good measure. As always, keep High Jump and Glide/Super Glide if you have it equipped to the party, very important to reach large bosses, and Flying Heartless. Now on to Customize, which is another very important and underrated aspect of our combat. With Sora nothing changes, we still have Stopra. You could even have Stopga at this point. Each has their advantages and disadvantages, with Stopga being better for boss fights, but Stopra being better for regular rounds. Whatever you have, stick it alongside Thundaga. Now unlike our stop magic, it is mandatory to have the fully upgraded form of Thunder magic, and while you're at it, make sure you have at least Cura, but preferably Curaga. You could get away with weaker forms of magic in the earlier cups, but now we're getting to the real challenge, and it's important to have the aforementioned spells. Again, if you need to know how to learn or upgrade any spells in the game, then check out my magic guide, which will be down in the description below. Donald gets the same setup as always, with offensive magic being the priority and setting items to only an emergency. Similarly here, my standard Goofy setup, with the priority being on regular attacks to conserve MP for his MP gift ability, and like Donald, items have been set to emergency use only. And that is my entire setup that I used throughout this grueling final challenge. I'm sure some of you will have an even more powerful setup, but if you're on par with me here, you should be fine. Again, if you want any information on items, weapons, accessories, or spells, then check the description, as every bit of info you could possibly need is down here, alongside the appropriate guide to obtain everything you've seen here today. So for the last time today, let's jump into the Hades Cup time trial and complete our final minigame. Good luck. Jump into the center and cast Thundaga. This is your bread and butter for most seeds, and the great thing about Thundaga is that it homes in on the enemies, so you only need to cast it once in most cases. Do the same thing again and pick off any stragglers. If Thundaga isn't one-shotting these Heartless, then your magic isn't strong enough, and you will need to equip better magic boosting accessories.
Nothing to it.
One Thundaga followed by attacks on the hammer legs is best for this round. I wasted a Thundaga unfortunately. Here's a good example of the Combo Master ability in action. Thundaga once again here, and from now on I won't be guiding you through any rounds that only require Thundaga, unless there is specific info you need. So just follow along and watch closely. Any rounds where I don't speak, it'll just be Thundaga. Hit the Mad Truffle once and it will leave. Our first boss type fight, Yuffie. You want to try your best to corner her, and after a little damage, one Ars Arcanum should be enough to finish her off at this level. You're starting to get to the rounds with Heartless which require 2 Thundagas to kill, which is fine, because as you can see the Ethers I gave Donald and Goofy's MP gift ability will keep your MP gauge healthy for quite a while during this time trial. On to our first proper boss fight, Behemoth. To damage the Behemoth you must attack its horn. So you want to high jump up on the back of the Behemoth and use Ars Arcanum on the horn. Every few seconds the Behemoth will bow its head and you must stop attacking, otherwise you will fall off and lose time like here. So wait for the head to rise and use Ars Arcanum. After taking some damage, the Behemoth will bow its head and keep it there for the party to attack. Afterwards it will become invulnerable for a short while and release a lightning attack. This is our cue to jump back on the Behemoth and continue the cycle until it's defeated. Again, timing for when it lowers its horn and making sure I'm right beside the horn before pressing triangle, otherwise Strike Raid will trigger. As you can see, I just combo him with Aerial Sweep, hit number 2 and then Hurricane Blast. All the abilities I talked about in the setup portion coming into play here to deal maximum damage. One more note, when the Behemoth's horns glow, he's about to bend down and then stand into the air. So don't waste Ars Arcanum here. Land a few hits and then be ready to jump and glide until the Behemoth returns to its regular position. And we can continue to use Ars Arcanum until they're defeated.
To it. Here.
Again, no need for a Thundaga here. Anything that doesn't get 2-shotted by Thundaga, just attack as normal. I didn't even think Ars Arcanum was necessary here either. Here's our first use of Stopra. We use this so we have time to defeat the green Requiems first, who will heal the black fungus. Now the black fungus have huge defense, so it takes one combo on each to be safe, because if they are not beaten quick enough, the black fungus become invincible for 15 to 30 seconds, which we simply cannot have in a time trial run. This is why we use stop magic, and although there may be better ways, this is the easiest and most consistent method of beating this round, in my opinion, especially at this level. We can use Thundaga here, but the yellow operas are immune, so instead I used Blizzaga, although I was too slow and the enemies dispersed, an example of how much quicker the customized spells are. Here the sliding dash ability shows its usefulness in closing the distance on far enemies. Just hack away at this round until it's done. No great strategy here with my particular setup. As always, defeat the green Requiems first to prevent healing. And start hacking away at the Stealth Sneak. There are a few Stealth Sneaks in the Hades Cup, so just note that they can't be defeated while in the middle of the glowing eye sequence, only afterwards. Here we come to our first magic immune round with wizards and yellow operas. So press lock on with R1, it should be to the wizard ideally. Move to a perpendicular angle to activate strike rate. This is our best way of dealing with wizards because of their immunity to magic, and the angle allows us to pick off most of the other Heartless in this round. This is what we use strike rate for, rounds with Heartless immune to Thundaga. Speaking of which, let's rinse and repeat with strike rate at this side angle for a quick victory over Seed 33. Another round of wizards and an angel as well, another Heartless immune to magic. We know what to do now. Lock on, move to the side, and strike rate. I wasn't at a great angle here. I should have been more perpendicular. But at the end of the day, no run will be perfect. At this point, you should use your first elixir, as we need lots of magic for the next round.
This should help.
Our next round is the boss Cerberus, and the reason we need lots of magic is because we're going to abuse stop on him. Lock on and cast stop, do a 3-hit combo, cast stop again, rinse and repeat until your magic is used up. This takes off a good 2 health bars at this level, even with me missing some hits. You can get some magic back during this fight by attacking Cerberus and or by taking damage, which will trigger our MP Haste and MP Rage abilities respectively to replenish our magic. The same goes for Donald and especially Goofy, who can use his MP Gift ability to give us even more MP, and each time we get our MP back, rinse and repeat the low jump combos with casting stop magic. Overall, not too hard of a boss fight with this strategy. At this point, the ethers are probably all used up from Donald and Goofy,
This should help.
so it is permissible to take our second elixir if needed.
Thunder! 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 Here!
Not bad, huh?
One Thundagger for the Dark Ball should finish them all off,
Here!
and then we can focus on the opposite armor. If you time your attacks for a deflect, it really helps slow the opposite armor down. Here I even used an Ars Arcanum, as this Heartless can be quite evasive.
Come on, take that!
So deflect, corner, attack, use Ars Arcanum if need be, and you should have no issue. Just a little time consuming. Quick reminder to always be jumping in the center of where the enemies spawn to maximize range at which Thundagger can hit the Heartless.
That's the power of the Keyblade! Here! That's the power of the Keyblade! Thunder! Thunder! Nothing to it.
This is the hardest seed in my opinion, Leon on Cloud, and where I really messed up this time trial. I miscalculated the MP I had and triggered Strike Raid instead of Ars Arcanum, which lost me time. At this point I should have used an elixir, but I waited way too long. If you have a Mega Elixir, now's the time to use it.
Come on! Heal! Here! Power! Take that! Take that!
You can see how easily I took down Leon with Ars Arcanum after using the Mega Elixir. I mistakenly activated Strike Raid here instead of Ars Arcanum, and that cost me 20 seconds of time, because you want to use Ars Arcanum when he's halfway down his final HP bar to defeat him before the sequence where he turns invincible and flies around begins. This was a poor showing on my part. I also would have equipped counter attack as an ability if I could start over again, as it would have let me deal damage right after clashing with Leon, or more importantly Cloud's block. Around this point, you may need another elixir, since you would have used a lot of MP in the Cloud and Leon fight.
Thunder.
Even though there is angels, I cast Thunder and then attack them afterwards. Definitely quicker than just attacking. As you can see, the angels can become invulnerable as well if left alive long enough.
Thunder. Thunder.
On the last wave of this seed, cast a Thundaga on the left side and then another on the right side to finish them all off quickly.
That's the power of the Keyblade. Thunder.
Just attack in this round, especially the invisibles, as they can disappear for a while, costing you valuable time. Perhaps I should have used Strike, but either way it shouldn't take any more than 20 to 25 seconds. I should have used an elixir right here.
Thunder. Here. We did it. Thunder. Thunder. This should help. That's the power of the Keyblade.
Earlier we saw an invisible, but now there are multiple, so if you can be quick, cast Graviga on them and it will one-shot. The reason we don't spam is to conserve MP, which I don't have a lot of at this level. As you see, the casting of any type of magic on the angel besides gravity heals them, so be careful.
Heal.
Here we are at our penultimate boss, Hades. Like Cerberus before, Hades is actually vulnerable, although to a lesser extent, to stop magic. So in the beginning, cast stop and 3-hit combo, then stop again and repeat. Once enough damage is taken, he will become impervious to damage and move towards the center of the area, where he will rotate while fire comes from his hands. This whole sequence takes around 10 seconds. The key is to stay close to Hades and follow the direction that he rotates, not too hard. When he goes to throw a fireball, use your guard ability that we equipped to deflect it back at Hades and stun him for a while. Rinse and repeat what I've shown already until you win.
Hey, having fun yet?
Heal.
having fun yet?
Come on.
Hey, starting to get warmed up here.
If he starts spraying fire towards you, just high jump over him and do a combo to his head.
Hey, having fun yet?
Come on.
That's it. That's it.
Come on. Come on.
Feel the heat.
Watch out because he does a lot of damage if he connects, so use Cure if needed. That's why it's there.
Hey, having fun yet?
Thankfully I had the Leaf Bracer ability equipped, which makes you invincible while healing. Otherwise I would have been defeated right there.
That's it. That's it. Starting to get warmed up.
Right here I should have cast Stop, but I messed up and lost about 8 seconds. So if he's close to the end, you can use your Stop magic again. This is by far the longest fight in the time trial, so don't worry if it takes you a while.
Having fun, Quiz? Isn't happening.
Here.
Here I try to get to the invisible before it disappeared, but no luck. Again, cast Graviga to one shot. Now because we use Graviga as our last spell on the magic menu, once we hit magic we will be right on it. So we can quickly cast Graviga here to defeat the angel as soon as possible, and then pick off the stragglers. Here I just like to lock on and attack the stealth sneaks, and most of the time the invisibles will just be caught in the crossfire. Remember, the stealth sneak always does the invincible eye attack before being defeated, so at this point you can change your attention to the remaining invisibles before going back to finish the stealth sneak.
Come on.
Thundaga was overkill here. Just attack them. They won't drop any items here.
That's the power of the Keyblade. Here. Thunder. Come on. Thunder. Thunder.
An elixir may be needed here after Thunder Spam. No strategy here, just attack as quick as possible. This is just a combination of attacks in the beginning. If the wyverns ever fly out of reach, use Thundaga. In the second wave of wizards, use Strike Raid. In the third wave, Thundaga again. And in the final wave, I tried Strike Raid but it wouldn't let me, so I just attacked.
Nothing to it.
The second last wave, here you want to use Graviga first, then Thundaga. Again, spam Thundaga and Graviga. Use up all your magic, because we will be using our last elixir in the end anyway. The final battle, I recommend always casting Iroga, as the damage I put on the Rock Titan is ridiculous, so even though it's easy to avoid their attacks, it can end you if you're not careful. Spam Ars Arcanum on the leg where appropriate, and when the Rock Titan falls, make your way to the head. Overall, a pretty easy fight. Took me less than 2 minutes and I messed up at times. 1 minute 30 seconds, I would say is very doable for this. I finished the time trial with just under 50 seconds left, which is fairly decent at this level, meaning you can compare your time with mine and have a 50-second leeway. I would say overall my run was very good up to seat 21, and then was slightly less optimal with a decent Hades fight and a bad Rock Titan. So you can see, even with a below average second half, the Hades Cup is very doable with this setup. Either way, once we have finished the Hades Cup time trial, we have completed not just the time trial minigames, but if you've been following along in this guide, all minigames are now complete. Congratulations. And that is it for my minigames guide. I want to thank you all for being patient while I finished this guide. This turned out to be a much larger project than I had initially anticipated, but like I said before, this will be a real useful addition to my guide videos and a great reference for both past and future guides. Remember to post all your scores below and we will keep a tally of all the records in the comments section. I really hope you all enjoyed and that this video has helped you. As always, I have been ShadyRiku. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all on the next one. Take care.